What led you to the island? Because like you and I have talked offline quite a bit. We've looked at probably a half a dozen projects on the island. None of them have stuck quite yet. So I'm curious
Yeah.
if it's like, how, like what brought you there, and what your thought is, what, a year into it at this point, maybe more?
Yeah. Are we recording? Are we
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah. We've
Yeah,
been
okay.
going since I got
Uh
on.
so the island was interesting. It kind of fell in my lap. So somebody I know from town, oddly enough, I met at Starbucks.
Mm,
Um I do a lot of work at Starbucks because it's a nice place for me to like run into people, network a little bit, and also get work done without getting bothered by people in my office, right?
hmm
So I'll go in there early in the morning and sit there for 2 hours. And I met this guy, John, and we just became friendly. And then it turned out we knew common people. And over the 2 years, I would run into him at Starbucks probably twice a week. We got talking about doing projects. And he was like, I have a place in Nantucket. I really love it out there. I know the values are great. I want to do something in Nantucket. I'm going to find us something in Nantucket. And of course, I'm like, all right, well, good luck. Like, I'll probably never hear from you, right? And sure enough, the guy shows up 6 months later. He's like, hey, I think I found us a project. Can you come to the island on Friday? We'll look at it. I was like, sure, yeah, why not? So I grew up on the Cape, so I'm not stupid. I know what I'm walking into out there, right? Like
Yeah.
I understand vacation towns. I understand how to build in a vacation town. I understand how to navigate very small, rinky-dink building departments,
hmm
right? Um, and so I'm not naive. It's not easy. But knowing that, I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we went and looked at it, and it was a giant Frankenstein old 1800s house that was chopped up into four terrible apartments,
Mm.
like really badly in the 70s. They did it, and it was just a hack job and disgusting. Like when I tell you gross, even I will sleep anywhere. Even I wouldn't have slept in that place. It was awful. Rats everywhere, like just gross. And and it turned out that there was a house on the backside that the previous owner had built as a multifamily on the same lot in the 70s before zoning changed.
hmm
And they had a big garage that they were using for a workshop. And the current owner, or the owner at the time, had got it approved for an 83L, and that could be wrong, 83L subdivision.
hmm
So some sort of funky subdivision law in Nantucket that allows you to subdivide if things were done pre-zoning. And so they were able to subdivide it, and they were selling us both for the price of one.
Mm.
And it kind of was like, oh, so not only do we have this thing in the front where you turn into a single family, but we also have this multifamily in the back and a garage that we could turn into a single family and a guest house.
Yeah.
And we started running numbers, and we were like, we think we can actually make it work. So we made an offer, and so some of the people listening to this might know we have our TV show and all that stuff in the past. We're not doing that anymore. But because of my marketing and my video work, and Nick, you can attest to all this stuff, like because of that backbone, they did their research on us and
hmm
felt that we were capable of pulling it off. They didn't want to sell it to somebody that they didn't think could actually pull something off,
Yeah.
right? And so they accepted our offer. It never hit the market. It was off market. And so we pulled a bunch of investors, and I don't own it. I own it with a bunch of limited partners,
hmm
and we were doing it. Where it was like, all right, we're gonna give this a shot and see how it goes. And it's been really fun. It's been eye-opening in many ways, but also not anything we didn't expect. Like all that small town stuff, the island stuff, the difficulty of getting stuff there, the ferries getting canceled so you can't make it home or can't make a meeting over there. All that's a real thing. So that's kind of how it happened. And now we're there, and hopefully we are successful, make money, and can do it again. And
Where are you at
maybe.
in that project?
So we're really delayed because of the historic approval, and we've learned
Mm.
some lessons that we would do very differently next time around.
Yeah.
But because it's so expensive to carry, it's like, okay, how do we piggyback this? How do we domino it so
Yeah.
that we're not wasting time just sitting? So what I did was I did some research. I figured out, okay, the only thing we can't do without historic approval is on the outside. So we're building the houses in reverse. So we said, okay, we pulled an interior demo permit and
Mm-hmm.
we got both structures. Then we pulled an interior framing permit.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew our generic layouts. We just didn't have the outside and the window placement and all of that figured out. And so the front house is 75% framed inside, fully
Yeah.
got all new floor systems. I mean, it was down to exterior walls and dirt. And we did 2 new floor systems. We reinforced the roof from inside. We built out the 3rd floor bunk room from inside. So when you look at it from the outside, you're like, nothing's going on here. But when you walk in,
Are
it's
you
like
leaving
a
the
new house.
exterior?
We have to because,
Yeah.
so that's part of this. We're in the
Right.
downtown historic district.
Got it.
So we have to leave the exterior. We're not even allowed to take a shingle off the house until we have an approval.
It's I'm gonna come back to this in a second, but like I remember as a kid, my we had this little cottage down in a beach town, close to the Cape. But I remember watching them build a house around the corner, and they literally built a brand new 2-story house. But they like there was something in the permit that would not allow them to tear down the cottage, and they built it around the cottage. So when you open the door, you walked in and there was an old house, like 2 feet, like a foot in front of you. And they built the whole house. It looked like a brand new house on the outside. They closed the permit, and then they pulled another permit to do an interior demo, and they demoed the cottage from the inside.
Wow.
And it was like you talk about backwards, but I mean, it's so I dealt with this morning. It's so frustrating how complicated permitting has got. And I don't necessarily blame like entirely like the system, because I think that there's so many people doing such shit work and pulling complete fast ones that these rules get put in place because of the worst of the worst. And then when it's like when someone that's halfway decent is trying to do the right thing, it's just like, yeah, but you know what, that guy over there totally screwed me, so you're gonna be shit out of luck.
Yeah, we're at the whim of other people creating this, right? And insurance companies, right? Like both. A lot of towns just don't want to deal with the liability, so they make it really tough so that they don't have to worry about it. They don't care if it's going to cost you another $10,000 of permitting fees and engineers and all this stuff. They just want to know that they're off the hook, right? So I think the historic approval in Nantucket, a lot of it has to do with the fact that so many people have opinions and they want to make sure that it's done the right way. And I totally respect that. I have no problem with that. Yeah. But how do we go through those motions while still getting something done, so we're not wasting money and time? And so the back house, same thing. We pulled the interior permits. And so we're about 3 months behind because of historic approvals. Basically because of our fault, because we should have gone about with the plans differently. We underestimated the amount of detail that had to go into these plans. And so when we first presented, we weren't really ready. And so we created our own problems. And so I've admitted that, obviously. And now, like, moving forward, I would do it much differently. And I've learned a lot of things I would do differently. Now I could easily get through. But the first time, what are you gonna do? It's the most complicated, busiest historic district in the country.
Are they hassling you for going about it the way that you are now?
No, I mean, the town's been awesome. The building commissioner, building department's been great. They're like, yeah, you just can't do anything on the outside. Pull a permit for anything you want on the inside. So I've been able to get a lot done, but from the outsider walking by, they're probably like, what is this guy doing? Like,
this is so backwards.
Yeah.
Pull your job site sign down.
Yeah, well, no, you're not allowed signs in the historic district. So, hence
at
the
all?
mini truck. No, 0. Hence the branded mini truck sitting in the front yard.
Makes sense,
right? That's why we did it. And so, and the business card holder sitting next to the front door.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, long story short, do I enjoy working on the island from the mainland? Honestly, it's been fine. Going to Chatham was way worse than going to Nantucket, because Going to Nantucket, it is 1 hour door to door from leaving my door to getting on a ferry. 1 hour exactly on the dot. And so I'm driving, just making phone calls like it normally would. And then I'm on the boat. I got my computer out. I have an hour of screen time. I get all my emails done. I walk 7 minutes to the job. I do an hour and a half, 2 hours of meetings or whatever I got to do. And then what am I going to do? There's nothing else for me to do at that point. I walk back to the ferry, get on. I'm home by 5 o'clock. It's really not bad. And I'm getting work done on the ferry, both directions, uninterrupted by anybody.
I get, so you're like on that, how many times a week are you going to Nantucket?
When we were really in the grind, I was like once a week.
Oh,
and
okay.
every other week I would stay over I would like book a room just in case, and I would stay over and try to be as productive as possible. So if you saw on Instagram, like I was gutting the back house myself, not because I couldn't sub it out or I couldn't find somebody. It was like, I was there.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, I got nothing else to do. And I know I have a meeting tomorrow. I'm just going to put my gloves on and start tearing this place apart and save myself 20 grand.
Yeah.
Right. And I loaded 5 dumpsters by myself just because I had nothing to do. So I was listening to the Modern Craftsman podcast, of course, because I wouldn't listen to anything else.
That makes sense.
And I was gutting a house. Like, you're there, you might as well take advantage of it, you know? And so I guess the thing is like, we're capitalizing on every trip the most we can. Like right now, my colleague is, or one of the people on my team is presenting the front house for the final time to Historic tonight. And while he's there, he's getting permits in and he's doing all this other stuff. And he's staying over to get that done, because if you're going to take the time to go out there, let's like capitalize on it, get as much done as we can. Like when we're bringing subs out, like my HVAC guys, when we did the back house, I sent them out, got them a hotel room, and they brought a bunch of dudes in one van and they just hammered it out in one day and they were gone. Like the whole system, right? My electrician booked him out for 3 days. He went out, hammered it out 14-hour days for 3 days, and he left. And it's just worked. Honestly, it's just like working in any town. You have to jump on a ferry instead of a train.